Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. We will, inshallah, start the discussion of today. And inshallah, I'll start with a small dua. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Uh, Starting with the sending salawat to our Prophet, which is also relevant to today's fruit that we'll be discussing. The fifth branch, the third fruit. Uh, so it's a very short fruit. I'll post the link. It's just like one paragraph. So I think today will be a nice discussion. We'll be really diving into this paragraph and trying to understand this, and hopefully with all your contributions and this is like a fruit about your physical actions and how we live our lives, or like our experiences of how to like implement our belief into our life using, let's say, we're going to be talking about things like the Sharia and the Sunnah. So these are things that we all struggle to like figure out and implement into our lives. So inshallah, like all your contributions will be very helpful, and all your experiences and thoughts on this. um so before we dive into third fruit, I also wanted to just like take a step back uh and see where we're coming from in like the fifth branch. So these are five branches that, again, Nursi said, study the study first four branches, I believe, and then in the fifth branch, hold on to it and rise up. Or was that about? I think that might have been about the fruits. I don't remember exactly, but this branch is about fruits. It's about taking something for our lives that is fruitful. And so far, let's see if like there have been fruits. In the first fruit we talked about, Nursi, again, he's always, the pattern he has in these fruits is in this branch, he's talking to himself. He's saying, "Oh soul." So he's trying to teach himself something, warn himself about something, or convince himself. So he's saying like, "Oh soul." In the first fruit we talked about how you have this faculty of love and fear. Whether you like it or not, you have love and fear, and you're going to give this love and fear to something. You can choose to give it to either other creatures that exist, other creations in the world. And Nursi says how this is going to end in your ruin, because these creatures have no mercy for you. They don't pity you, so you're going to be devastated. Or he says that you can give this love. Also, you can give this love to yourself. But he says like the folly in giving your love to yourself is that love is given to things that are perfect, that are beautiful. And you know more than anyone how imperfect you are, and how, let's say, ugly you are, how you know far from deserving of that love you are. So like if you tried to give it to yourself, you would be like a firefly in darkness. You're trying to light yourself up to overcome the darkness around you, but you're just, the light you can have is as much as a firefly, and not even that. So what you need to give your love to be, and you have this love in this fear. You can't escape and be like, no, I don't believe, or you can't say, uh, I'm happy in my life. No, you have this love and fear, and you will give it to something. It's inescapable, and you can. And he says that the thing you must give it to, both the love and the fear, is the pre-eternal one, the one that is perfect, the one that if you give that love to him, you can be saved. And Nursi ends that first fruit with the verse, "If you love God, follow me, and God will love you." So this is bringing in the messengerhood. And then the second fruit, we are now going. Nursi is now talking about saying worship. So the first one was about love and fear, and now we're going into worship, because it seems, I guess, in the first one, if you end with trying to give your love to your eternal one, then how do you show your love? How do you make this love into your actions? It seems that the flow of thought then goes into, how do I perform worship? How do I, in my actions, express this love? And Nursi says, this worship that you're doing, it's not, he's warning himself again. He's saying, it's not for additional rewards. You're not doing the worship for rewards. You've already been given everything. You've been given all this bounty. You've been given life. You've been given existence. You've been given uh, emotions and feelings. You've been given love, and you've been given, like, I remember one sentence he said, you've been given Islam. This Islam, which we can interpret as just like this religion of Islam, but Islam is also like, I had read another place recently where Islam is about surrendering. It's this attitude of surrendering of Islam, which is a very beautiful thing actually. It saves you, the surrendering, submitting. It saves you from the enemies in this world. It's a very priceless thing that helps you and gives you relief and solace and happiness. And you've been given these things, so you should be thankful for them. You don't worship to ask for further. And Nursi goes further and says, because I guess we might all have this question. Sometimes I feel like maybe I haven't been given things. Maybe you want to complain, and Nursi says, no, your place is not to complain. Your place is to supplicate. It's to ask and seek His mercy and His munificence constantly. It's to trust in Him. Your place is not to complain about the things that you've been given. It's instead to already, he says, like, without a doubt, he says that existence is like pure good, which is something you're going to have to confirm for yourself and constantly study and try to understand. But you've been given your wages already, so it's now up to you to worship. So worship is something that comes after you've been given the wages, and it's worship is something about submission. It's about not complaining. It's about supplicating to Him. Also, towards the end of the second fruit, we're talking about something like, uh, so much bounty has been given, so much grace has been given to me. How can I perform worship for all these countless things? And uh, Nursi talked about how, there's, he talked about the wisdom and how the believer's intention is better than his action. The intention. So, like, the intentionally, you can seek glorification and help from all the creatures in the universe. You can be like, I thank you in the name of everything that I see in the universe, all the stars, all the light, all the creatures. You can glorify in such a big way by including them in your worship. And then in the third fruit, which we will go into now, a very short fruit again, uh, there's like a progression of an idea. In the first one, there's love, and then once you love, there's worship. But then what comes after worship is this idea of, like, how do I worship then? Like, what's the form this worship should take? We talked about glorification and thanks, but is there like there's like a further progression of how to worship? And in this third fruit, we will talk about the Prophet ﷺ and how, if we want to, transform our daily life into worship, if we want to transform our daily, the things we do in a normal basis, and if we want them to have more meaning for us, if we want to enjoy them more, if we want them to be more beautiful for us, we all want that. We all want our lives to be more beautiful for us. We want all of our actions to be more meaningful for us. We'd love it if we can, like, sit down and eat one egg or drink a cup of tea, and it makes us extremely happy. We the small things in life, we'd love for them to be to give us joy. For everything to be like a star for us of light. And he says, if you want this in your life, if you want to transform these tasks that you do daily that seem mundane or that seem meaningless to you, if you want to transform them into worship, then he says you need to follow the Prophet ﷺ, you need to follow his Sharia and his Sunnah. And he talks about that. So inshallah, we can dive into that then. We can dive into the third fruit. And there's a lot of terms. So just before we start, there's a lot of terms that are mentioned and a lot of um, things he says which have to be dug into and explained further. So inshallah, I'll just read the third fruit just from start to finish once, and then we can come back to the start and try to understand sentence by sentence uh, what Nursi is saying. So, Bismillah. The third fruit. Also, if in a brief life you want to do something that will profit you infinitely in the hereafter, and you want every moment of your life to be as beneficial as a lifetime, and if you want to transform your habitual actions into worship and your heedlessness into awareness of the divine presence, follow the illustrious practices of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. For when you apply your actions to the rulings of the Sharia, it affords a sort of awareness of God's presence. It becomes worship of a sort and yields many fruits for the hereafter. For example, you bought something. The moment you applied what is acceptable and required by the Sharia, that ordinary act of shopping acquired the value of worship. Recalling the injunctions of the Sharia calls to mind revelation. And by thinking of the lawgiver, you are turned towards God. And that makes you aware of his presence. That means in applying the illustrious sunnah to your actions are advantages like making this fleeting life the means of gaining an everlasting life, which produces eternal fruits. Heed the decree. So believe in God and his messenger, the unlettered prophet, who believes in God and his word. Follow him that you may be guided. Quran chapter 7, verse 158. Try to reflect comprehensively the effulgence and manifestation of all of the most beautiful names, whose manifestations are diffused within the ordinances of the Sharia and illustrious Sunnah. And ordinance means decrees and order. So within the decrees of the Sharia and illustrious Sunnah. So a very short third fruit. We can go back to the beginning and start unraveling the sentence by sentence, inshallah. So, O soul, always, Nursi, he's talking to himself, and I do believe like he wrote these recitals for himself, or that he was trying to address himself first and foremost, or at least he's like opening a window into how he was talking to himself, how he was trying to make sense of the world, and uh, maybe to some degree there was an attempt to also teach people, but I think more than anything, it was just how can I convince myself? How do I find answers and guidance to the things that are plaguing me or to the darknesses that I'm finding? And this is his experience that he's gone through, his path, and he's trying to, I guess, lend light to that, and he's just sharing that. So he says, also, if in a brief life you want to do something that will profit you infinitely in the hereafter, and you want every moment of your life to be as beneficial as a lifetime, he continues like this. But so, these are sentences that maybe we need to ask ourselves, like, you want to do something that will profit you infinitely in the hereafter, and you want every moment of your life to be as beneficial as a lifetime. Is this something that I want? Is this something that I yearn for? Uh, maybe I should pose this question right now to all of you and myself. Would you want, or do you want to do things that will profit you infinitely in the hereafter? Do you want to do things that will be as beneficial as a lifetime? And we know we can approach this like, what is hereafter here, and how is something as beneficial as a lifetime? Like what would be an example? Is this like if I study in my 12th grade in elementary school, and not elementary, in high school, and I get into a great college that's going to put my career on a really nice path, and that studying in my senior year is going to benefit me in my lifetime? Is this what kind of beneficial thing I'm searching for? Something that's going to benefit me in the lifetime. And then here it says every moment of your life. Or what is this hereafter? Profit you infinitely in the hereafter. Is this like if I, let's say, if I go to Hajj, or if I, pray on Laylatul Qadr in Ramadan, like this will be like such a huge blessing for my hereafter. Like I would gain rewards. Like it's written down for me. Like I've done my action, like I've done my deeds, and now I'm gonna reap them once I die and I go into the hereafter. Like I'm not downplaying these at all, and these might be true. This is what maybe he's talking about, or what we're talking about to some degree. Uh, maybe I'll pose this question to you before I continue. So if anyone would like to make a comment about these first two statements he made. Okay. So I guess I'll say from my view, when I read this, I asked myself, do I want to do something like this? And the answer is yes. Not, but I would like to feel like something is benefiting me now. I want the actions I'm doing to benefit me to some degree. At least I want to feel them now at this moment. And I would like to feel in a large degree. Like, for example, this goes almost in contradiction to the previous fruit now that I'm thinking about it. But like, let's say I'm praying, I find this in me. Like, let's say I pray, I would like to feel benefit from it. However, prayer, we were talking about, prayer is not, you're not searching for reward. It's a thanks for everything that's been given. So I'm realizing maybe that's not a correct thought that I'm having. I'm sharing that now. But I do want to do things that will benefit me, which is odd considering the second fruit. Because in the second fruit, we're talking about worship again is not for reward, it's for thanks. So in the third fruit, when we enter, saying that, and this is something that just came to my mind now, I realize there's almost a contradiction now. In the third fruit, we're saying something to benefit you. It's a bit odd. Aisha, would please go ahead. Wait, one second actually. How do I? Okay, go.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I just wanted to share a few brief comments on the first few sentences of this third fruit, which is rather short. First, I guess it's addressing to my soul, right? And I'm going to take that as it addressing to my humanness, just like my human feelings and qualities, maybe. And it says, in this short life, you want to do something that will profit you infinitely in the hereafter, and you want every moment of your life to be as beneficial as a lifetime, and to transform those actions into worship, and heedlessness into awareness. Follow the practice of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Now, at first, I was thinking, yep, makes sense, check. But, like, if I'm honest with myself, I don't really think about the hereafter much. It seems very distant to me. It's very sort of abstract. I'm so preoccupied with things that are going on in my life and, my current struggles, my current woes, or my current expectations and joys. And, I know Abdurrahman also said that to be concerned with the now. But what I do know, when I look into myself, what I do know is that I want the time I spend to be meaningful. And how it's going to attain that meaning, I'm not sure. Sometimes it's kind of a, try it, test it out on trial. I try something. If I feel good after it, I'm like, okay, this is a good way to spend my time. It feels meaningful. If I do something else, I get the feeling that I don't even know what I just did and I don't know how the time went or how I spent the week, then it doesn't feel so great. So I just know that I want my time to be meaningful. In a sense, maybe you can even say memorable. But it has to be something that brings a type of value. I guess I'm searching for value in my day-to-day life. And if profiting infinitely means bringing value and meaning into my life as I experience it, if it's equated to that, then yes, I'm interested in what Nursi has to say. Or else, I don't know. I guess I'm sharing this because I kind of felt when I was reading this, I found myself just kind of nodding in agreement, but it was almost a sort of almost habitual nod, or like if I really think about it, I'm not sure if I can quite internalize the benefit or the the goodness in what is being proposed. I'm not sure if that made sense, but those are my thoughts right now.
Jazakumullah khairan. That's thank you for your honest feedback and your thoughts. I would say that, going off what you said, I have to agree that, as we read this, it's like, yeah, he's saying very correct things. These are things I agree with, but if I dig deeper, is this true? Like, do I actually, like, in my mind, it's almost ingrained that, I want to save my hereafter, let's say, and I realize, yeah, there's a creator. So there's like this duty I have to do. I need to pray 5 times a day, and then I need to, let's say, fast and do these things. This is so I don't go to hell and I can get the paradise, because I do believe there's a creator and there's like this message, and I have like these like little rules that I need to follow, but like essentially I'm just trying to do the minimum in some ways that I can just then prosper after I die. It can pay off then. I'm not really looking at, well, when I do look at how can I make my life meaningful at every second, or how can I find joy, it's generally not, I don't turn to like, worship in my mind, like quote unquote worship, like prayer. I'm like, okay, how can I increase my career, or how can I get more entertainment, or how can I be more happy, let's say take vacation or this and that, like bigger house, a car. Like these are the things that I think will make my life more pleasurable. And then on that side, it's my hereafter, I will then pray and do these other things. So I do want my life, the things I do in my life, to, I want to be happy in it, but I don't seek, let's say, worship as a avenue to get that. Brother Yusuf, go ahead.
I am trying to see if I have ever felt like this, like when he says, if you want to do something that will profit you infinitely in the hereafter. Is there at least some glimpses of it in my life? Is this something that I have never experienced before, or is it something that I can relate to? For instance, if I have never eaten a certain type of food, and if you ask me, would you like to get delighted by eating this food? At most, I would say, well, I am okay with trying new stuff, so let me see what it looks like. But I'm not going to be very much enthusiastic about it because I've never tasted it before. And other than trying new things, there's nothing specific about this type of food for me. But if there are specific examples of this, then I will be longing for it. And as if the author is saying that if you like this, as if it's something that you must have some sort of an experience with. So now I'm trying to relate to it, and there are some discussions that I attended, for instance, or a unique perspective for some verses of Quran, or likewise something in the existence that are being related to some meaning. When I first heard about them, I'm so mind blown. And whenever I remember it, still I am getting excited, for instance. This gives me I think this is what the author is talking about in here, like a moment, which was maybe a half an hour, 1 hour discussion at some point of my life, but still it is very lively. And whenever I remember it, still as if I am reaching out to other realms. Like, what I mean by that is it's not what I get used to in my day-to-day life. It's a unique experience. Zainab is not allowing me to speak, sorry. So the author is saying, how would you do this, or would you like this to be your regular life? Or would you like to make this applicable to all moments of your life? I say, yes, actually, I would. I would like to live my life as if I am having those beautiful discussions 24/7. If such a thing is possible, definitely I am into it. I'm trying to increase number of discussions that I have with people. I mean, it's trying, sometimes it's being successful, sometimes not. But at most it is like there are 7 days a week. If I put discussions every day, 1 hour, 1.5 hours, still that much at most. So is it possible to increase number of those moments? And I guess author is saying, yes, it is. And this is by following the practices of the messenger. But what does that mean? Maybe we can discuss it separately, because Zainab is allowing me to speak, so you guys can continue. What does it mean that following practices of the messenger is going to provide you such a perspective or such an experience?
Brother Birkan, go ahead.
Selamun Alaikum. Let's see if Bishra will allow me to speak. So the words that we use, or the ideas that we share all the time, like we say this a lot, which is, I am concerned about the moment. I am concerned about the now, or I want to get the pleasure now. I want to get the satisfaction, benefit, whatever we discuss. Now, we say. Or something similar, that I want to have my moment meaningful. But the emphasis is usually on the moment, on now. And if something is about not now, later, for instance, or before, past or future, we have this feeling as if we are trying to cheat ourselves. Because if you want to be convincing, if you want to be satisfactory in your thinking, you have to talk about now. You have to talk of the moment, because this is the only thing that you can experience, that you can confirm, that you can test. So this is the usual attitude. Then, to be honest, like nowadays or let's say for a while, I'm having the difficulty of understanding what I really mean when I say such things. Like I want to, for instance, let's start with I want to have my moment meaningful. So what does it mean to have a meaningful moment? So something is meaningful for me, a moment is meaningful for me. Of course, this is my, the personal take. So please help me. I'm sure other people have different ideas, maybe conflicting, that will be even better. So I mean, when I say, I want a meaningful moment, I want a meaningful day, meaningful life, something is meaningful for me when it makes sense, when it fits with the rest of my life. When there's a coherence between other things in my life and whatever I'm talking about right now. So a toy is a meaningful toy for me if my daughter likes it and it saves me burden of taking care of her. It's a meaningful toy for me. Otherwise, it's a meaningless toy. but its meaning, it's somehow related to everything else in my life, everything else I have in my life. So meaning of something, at least from my perspective, cannot be taken, cannot be considered in isolation. So I cannot talk about a meaningful pillow or meaningful sofa if I'm not referring to any person who would enjoy this meaningful sofa by sitting and then eating on it, which brings, my, for instance, hips into, consideration, and then the food into consideration. And if I'm thinking about sleeping on the sofa, it's about my biological cycle, it's about my body, so on and so forth. And you will see that a meaning will be found among the relationship between things, but not within things themselves. And the same way we say, for instance, I find meaning, when it comes to a belief perspective, when it comes to a religious perspective, we say I find meaning in relationship with my Lord. So it's about, the rest of my life. It's about how things come together. This is what makes things meaningful, a coherence. So it is not possible for me to talk about something in isolation in that sense. So same thing goes with the time, moment. Like I say, I want to get the benefit now. So like how this is true, like how am I getting benefit now? Something is beneficial for me to the extent, again, it's a meaningful outcome of my past, and it will be very useful for my future. So the benefit that I get here and now, it is related because of my humanity, because my soul, my spirit extends to infinity, from minus infinity to plus infinity. So my here and now, my moment, it is not something isolated from the past and future, but rather it is the collection of my past and future. So again, so like in practical examples, I make decisions about my business, for instance. I make decisions about my family life. It's not only about the instant pleasure that I get when I make this choice. Think about the moment that you decided, if you are married, decided to whom you will be married. This decision and the benefit of this decision, pleasure of this decision, was not limited by the mere pleasure of making the decision. It was about the possible happy moments about your future. And that was so natural for you. So this is how I, a human being, lives his or her life. So I guess my problem, my issue with this talking about now and moment is that we assume, or I sometimes assume, that I will reach infinity. I will reach to everlasting life. What is the word the author used here? Anyway, I couldn't find. But I will reach this infinite, everlasting life by just concentrating on the moment. And within the moment, I will find this everlasting life by isolating moment from the past and the future. But I think the right approach is not isolating a moment from the past and the future, but rather collapsing, like gathering all possible past and future of me and collapsing into the moment. Meaning, when I talk about the benefit, when I talk about the pleasure I get from the moment, it actually means the pleasures that I will get in the future and all the pleasures I got in my past. So as a human being, my entirety, the infinitely long lifespan that I can achieve, that I can reach, its collection and collapsing it into the moment. This is how you get the everlasting life or infinite life. So the last part, I know it's abstract, but even if you just stick with the practical aspect, there's no such thing as I want to get pleasure now. You cannot find any pleasure of yourself which is confined with the moment. Like, this is a bold claim, but you cannot find any such pleasure. Even the, but the most mundane pleasures, even the most mundane physical pleasures that you get, they always last at least a few seconds. So I think, like, in trying to, I'm sorry to take really long time, but in trying to, let's say, normalize, in trying to, maybe, I'm sorry to use this, but secularize our talk about the religion and make it more maybe accessible to the crowds, or first and foremost, our soul, and trying to say that, religion will give me pleasure for the moment, and this is the only thing I'm interested in. This is not being honest to yourself. This is not you. You haven't decided what school to go just for the pleasure of making the decision. You decided by considering all the pleasures that you will get when you were studying in this school. The same thing goes with your family life, same things goes with your friends, everything, the book you read, or the movie that you watch. You do not turn on the movie and say that, okay, I got to my pleasure, the rest is irrelevant. You wait. You are so excited to know about the ending of the movie from the beginning. So human being is the collection. Everything is collapsed in the moment. Again, sorry for taking too much time.
Thank you for your comments. I agree that as humans, so I enjoyed your emphasis that we need to understand what we're talking about when we say it in the moment. We need to realize that as humans, we're beings that, we do see the past, we see the future, we can think about them, we can encompass the past and the future and the moment right now as well. So let's say a pleasure in the future is still a pleasure right now. Like if in a week I will visit, let's say my parents or something like that, I feel the joy of it right now. I can feel that joy. And similarly, I can feel the joy of things in the past as well. Personally, I think when I say that, when I read something as if you want to do something that will profit you infinitely in the hereafter, or you want to do something that's going to be as beneficial as a lifetime, I want to have some degree of experiencing it right now as well. And I want to be able to I want to at least be able to confirm it or experience some degree of that before I die, before I go into this place that I have no clue about after I die. I want to know the truth of it, and I want to feel the truth of it I don't want it to just be like as if we're talking about cohesion. You were talking about how everything is so coherent in your life. They're all so cohesive with each other. Everything makes sense. When I have this idea that I perform worship and that in the hereafter, like let's say there are just a point system which I am now increasing, for me it seems like a disconnect. I am performing worship and then there is points that are increasing, but if I can't connect those two, then I don't feel it doesn't feel nice for me to perform a worship, or it doesn't feel nice to I don't know, want to live in this, like follow such a path, because it just seems incoherent. It doesn't make sense. So I want to be able to see that when I do, let's say, live with belief, or when I do, uh, as you were saying, live according to the Sharia and the Sunnah, I want to see that there's a cohesiveness there, that I can witness how this connects to the hereafter, and that it makes sense to me, rather than just it being some type of game that you just have to play. Uh, so that's just the comment I wanted to make. But thank you for the emphasis on that. We need to realize that, even, and I was thinking here, like, this, do I not believe in a hereafter? Do I not believe that, I am given so much in this world, so much bounty? We were talking in the second fruit, how much bounty I'm given. Do I not also believe that once I die, that I'm also go, this merciful creator of mine will also fulfill my needs and will also give me bounty, hopefully, if he forgives you, and with his mercy, will he also not give me bounty then? Like, do I not believe in such a hereafter that my creator will then give me bounty? And I suppose, if I can, like, work right now, if I can work in my schools and career, and, for me, it's like, this is an investment for my future, which I know it's going to pay off, then similarly, if I had the conviction that this hereafter did exist, if I had the conviction that, my creator does exist, and my creator is the one that is giving me this bounty, and he's also similarly going to give me bounty after I die, then I should be able to see that, yeah, this is, it makes perfect sense to, let's say, live my life in the Sunnah, in the Sharia, according to this. Like, because I see that that bounty is there. It's going to benefit me in the hereafter. Um, but I guess, unless anyone else has a comment, I find like now I'm like, I'm hitting like a wall in my thought right here, because in the second fruit we were talking about how we don't worship for reward. We don't worship to seek things. We are already given bounty, and then we perform worship. And it seems in the third fruit, when we're starting, he is saying, if you want to do something that will profit you, and he's saying, if you want your life to be as beneficial as a lifetime. And I think the second statement, if you want your life to be as beneficial as a lifetime, is less about profit. I can understand that, because if you do, let's say, if you do live in worship, even if you're not seeking the reward of it, your life will, you will still be safe from the darkness and desolation. So your life will be more beneficial. But it's seemingly as if he's saying that if you want to do something that's going to profit you, maybe the wording is not the same in the translation. I'm not sure, but it's as if you're seeking reward in the hereafter. It seems to be in contradiction to what we were talking about in the second fruit. If you have any thoughts about that, it's kind of stuck on my mind. Yes, Brother Muhammad, say, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. I benefited from the questions and from the comments on those previous questions and comments. And I'm sharing based on those. Maybe there are some disconnections, but the hereafter, you're reminding me the need for me to be satisfied fully, or not having anything lacking, because I do really realize when I feel something is lacking. Today I was talking to a friend of mine, and his family was away from him, and then he was talking about he's alone. So basically, uh, when there is a lack, when there is a person beloved one away from me, I realize that I wanna be with him. Um, I wanna be with my family, but thing is subject. And but my reality is that I want everything to be completed. I want something infinite existence, but I realize that it seems that there's nothing that can give me the help. There's no avail for me within the universe, because the things are going away. And yes, I love things, but as soon as I remember that nothing is gonna stay in my hand, that love becomes in question. So it means like I'm looking for something infinite. So I think this text, the author acknowledges that need of human being and says, if you are um, sharing um, this situation like me, like my soul, and if you are looking for existence and infinite gathering, infinitely, I don't know how to say this one, but no breaking point in a loving relationship is that is always there. But it's not always there. In terms of the condition of this life, but I need it. The mention of akhirah, as far as I understand, is related to this situation of human being, that we really um, are living for that um, that infinite, unending uh, happiness or joy of um, unending existence, uh, unending provision, unending security, unending life, um, unending love. Uh, I don't know how it is. I am saying these ones. I don't know the nature of these things, but when I look at myself, um, I feel sorry, and I feel, let's say, upset when a part of my body, an organ of my body, is not functioning as it was before. What does this feeling? I'm not indifferent to any change on my body. I like to be quote unquote complete, but I will not be complete at all. There's death. So it means I'm really searching for, or I'm yearning for, or craving for um, some kind of uh, completeness, infinity. Um, so this is very interesting that the messenger of God is mentioned in terms of this need of human being. For me, it is very interesting. Um, I forgot your question. It was interesting for me actually to hear your question, Abdurrahman. Is it possible? Can you remind
Of
me,
course.
please?
So he says in here that if you want to do something that will profit you infinitely in the hereafter, he says if you want to do something that's going to profit you, it's as if you're seeking a reward in the hereafter. Whereas in the second fruit, we were talking about how worship is something you do because you've been given the bounties. You don't do worship seeking rewards. You do worship because all the bounties have already been given. So now it seems in the third fruit that there's this, he's talking about how you should do something because this is going to profit you. You're going to get a reward for it in the hereafter. It seemed to be in some way a contradiction to me, or I didn't fully understand it.
I think it's the benefit is like I already love. Let's say I'm using my sense of love. I'm implementing it with the realization of the fact that the love my beloved is gonna go away. Then this transaction between me and the way that I use my love becomes not a source of pleasure, but becomes a kind of a pain, because I love and it's not in my hand not to love, but at the same time, my beloved doesn't um, is not forever. I am not able to secure my beloved. Um, so I think this is a contradiction for me to solve why I am so, or why this world is so, because I am loving. I I love to see my beloved to be secure, but I cannot really guarantee anything. Um, I think this transaction, the utilization of this love, is the subject matter of benefit. Um, so the the sense of love, the ones that I love, I think I'm offered another way of seeing them. I'm offered, uh, according to this passage we are reading, through the ways of the messenger. I am offered a way to use my sense of love as a given, and in it, I will see the benefit of using this sense of love as a given by an infinite source of love, by an unending source of love, and um, that will be a beneficial transaction for me, because now I am seeing the reality of this love um, as a news, bringing me the news that this taste of love from an infinite love is guaranteed by the security, by the stamp of the way the universe is, how the maker of the universe is telling me that the he is the source of love, he is the infinite source of love. And when I establish my relationship, when I use the sense of love with this awareness, then I will get the benefit of this interaction, of this exchange. That's kind of, my answer or my comment on your question. I had a question too. If it is good time for me to share it, I will share it, but I will
Go ahead.
follow your direction. The author is, yeah, they're mentioning about starting with this uh, infinite profit in the hereafter, and then transforming the habitual actions into worship, and awareness of divine presence. And then he concludes, follow the practices of the prophet. peace be upon him, why it's not follow the guidance of the Quran? What is is there any difference, or what is the difference, if there is any? Actually, I would like to continue with the other sentence to add to my question. For when you apply your actions to the rulings of the Sharia, it affords a sort of awareness of God's, so God's presence, being in the God's presence, having the awareness of God, is it not possible to be aware of God's presence through the message of the scripture, or why the author is using this, why he's saying practices of the prophet, but not the guidance of the scripture? I don't know. I feel there's something here, but I'm not sure what it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments and your questions. Brother Yusuf, if go ahead, please.
So I guess your question and Mohammed Said's questions are quite related. So looking at how the author was talking about the fruit so far. So in the first one, he talked about love and fear and how it's so central to human and how to remedy those problems. And he transitioned to the concluded by saying you should recognize your neediness and impotence and acknowledge your provider. So, and simply this is, he was describing the state of being a worshipper, but it's a state, like ubudiyya, abdness is a state. So you recognize that this is who you are. So momentarily you can recognize that and you can fall into heedlessness and forget it also, just go back to your regular life. So in the second fruit, he was talking about, he was expanding this state of worship, but it's still in the second one, he is talking about that state. And he said, you should be offering this, or you should be in that state because you are being provided with so many things. Then the question came, the question was asking, so how can I respond to, with my limited worship, with my limited consciousness, how can I respond back to so many bounties? And then he gave us this, formula, which is an all-encompassing intention. But since we get to hear this word of intention a lot in like Juma khutbahs, in all MSA discussions and everything, it's like a magical word. So we were discussing what does this, how can I make this word intention a useful word rather than just another memorized word. So he gave a lot of examples from how I can be like directing my intention. But still, there's a reason why I'm using the word, like a memorized word for intention, because you and I, we all know that we keep hearing this word intention and intention millions of times in all MSA discussions and khutbahs, and still it's not sinking in to our lives. Just a second. It's not sinking into our lives. So now in this third one, he's actually giving us the clue why it's not sinking into our lives. Because so far in the first and the second fruits, he was already explaining us the light that the messenger brought in. But understanding it, or like being immersed in it, is not practically happening unless and until it becomes my life. So how do I make it my life? Because I am made or given existence or created as a human. And I have to do day-to-day actions. So am I going to separate my life like studying the scripture versus doing regular things, in which studying the scripture is going to be like the discussions is going to be the enlightened moments, and the rest is just going to be, yeah, I have to do it, so I do it. So make it quick so that I'm going to go back to studying my scripture. He's saying, no, this is not need to be the case. You can make every moment of your life fruitful and enlightened. But how am I going to do that? Says, you need to put a, if you like, landmark for all those actions. And this is how, as if by a formula, do it with whatever you're going to do it. Just have this question in your mind. How would my creator like me to act in this case? Because I want to align myself according to that. Every moment I want to remember him, because otherwise there's no alternative. Like, well, there is alternative. The alternative is either I'm going to follow my own desires, or I'm going to follow the regulations of the society. But still, I'm following somebody else's, I mean, including my ego, I'm following some sort of a command. So now the author is saying that let's change this and follow commands of the creator, which is Sharia. But where is the commands of the creator? It's not in the scripture. Like the rules in the scripture are, how many of them? So is there a rule about how to buy and sell, for example? Well, if it's not, then how am I going to do it? By remembering my creator. So this is why messenger is getting such an important role in my day-to-day life. But there is one important thing here for me. He says, do it, follow the messenger. So when doing something, doing it like this because messenger did it like this. Not like, well, this is the optimum way of doing it. As we might be doing, for instance, well, yeah, messenger did it like this because this was, this is how you maximize your profit. This is, if you do it like this, this is how you're going to live a more healthy life. Actually, messenger lived a life like I am brushing my teeth. Yeah, I should use this specific thing because it is more healthy. Yeah, messenger did it because it was healthy. This is why messenger did it. And I'm going to do it because it's healthy. So if I do it like this, it's not following the messenger really. I'm just following an optimized healthcare professional. It's not following the messenger. So if I'm doing some action, the author is suggesting that do it as messenger did it. This would make you constantly remember the one who sent the messenger. And this is what you're interested in, getting a connection with the one who sent the messenger. So this messenger should be that role model, quote unquote. But since we keep hearing again in MSA Khutbahs, messenger should be my role model. Role model in what sense? In the sense that he is the guide that I am in need of, that is sent to me by my maker, and I'm going to follow him in this action. So if I have this, if you like, question mark or reminder constantly, what would my creator want me to behave like? As long as this is a constant reminder in me, every moment of my life would become connected with my creator. And I guess practically we can think of it like, let's say, if you are going to make a statement, let's say post something to the Facebook, what comes to your mind first? What would such and such think about me if I post this? Well, yeah, such and such will like it, but these other friends will dislike it. These are the things that comes to my mind, for instance. So rather, as if the author is saying that, replace it with, what would my creator think about this? So how am I going to judge this though? So make following the messenger, because there is like an example in front of you, your rule of thumb, and make this connection between you and the messenger as a means to be in constant remembrance of the creator. So this is a very practical suggestion of being constantly in the state of a worshipper. Because for the previous two parts, yes, I want to worship. No, I want to be in a state of constant worshipper. So then, yeah, I'm going to come up with my own way of remembering the creator. The author says this is not practical. This is not how it would happen. So there is this specific example sent for you and now is in front of you, so you should follow to reach. So I guess at this point then, we can ask the question, is it not possible, or what is wrong if I say I'm going to come up with my own way of remembering my creator? Why shall I follow this messenger but not do it in my own way?
You ended very suddenly. But thank you for your comments. So from what I understand, from what you were saying, is that there is this Sharia. I think you were giving maybe even a definition of Sharia is, what would my creator want me to behave like? Or like, these rulings is, what would my creator want me to behave like? However, what am I gonna base this upon? Like, who is going to tell me like what my creator, or how am I going to understand what my creator would want from me? And this is where you're saying that it's necessary to have a prophet here, to have a messenger here. And when I can look at this messenger's life, then I can more better understand what my creator would like me to act like. This is what I understood. So thank you for your comment. I think we can continue. We don't have so much time left, so I'd like to at least get through a bit more. So starting from the beginning. Also, if in a brief life you want to do something that will profit you infinitely in the hereafter, and you want every moment of your life to be as beneficial as a lifetime, and if you want to transform your habitual actions into worship and your heedlessness into awareness of the divine presence, follow the illustrious practice of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. So as we were saying throughout this beginning of this discussion, is we want to, things are perishing, things are dying, and we are creatures that we can encompass the past and the future. We don't want momentary things. We want to have everlasting things. And this is what Nursi is saying, is if you want to find like everlasting things, if you want to find a beauty that doesn't die, then follow the illustrious practices of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. For when you apply your actions to the rulings of the Sharia, it affords a sort of awareness of God's presence. It becomes worship of a sort and yields many fruits for the hereafter. When you apply your actions to the rulings of the Sharia, so there's this term Sharia, and the Sharia, Nursi says, it affords a sort of awareness of God's presence, and it becomes a worship. So again, Nursi saying a sort, it becomes a sort of worship, and yields many fruits for the hereafter. So, here's saying like different types of worship. And actually previously we're talking about the different types of worship before the fifth branch. And so he's saying that the acting, applying your actions according to these rulings is a type of worship. He's saying that when you acknowledge that there is a ruling, even the existence of a ruling is maybe not so clear. Many people probably don't, even myself, like even if you think there are rules, you might not live according to them. And some people just outright don't believe in any rules. It's just like, I will act and do whatever I want. You think that there's no laws that you must obey. So even accepting that, yes, I have a creator, and this creator that has created me has placed some rules, and there are some rules that you can't escape. Like Sharia, I take it to mean one, I can interpret it as the order of the universe that I'm in. There's a Sharia of physics, there's a Sharia of just other things like my daily life, let's say just walking or eating, the fact that I get hungry, like I can't escape these facts. I can't escape this rulings that are placed upon me. And then there's also Sharia and like your actions. And as we were saying before, like uh, from Brother Yusuf was telling me, saying, I mean, I'm not sure where you got this idea that what would my creator think about this? Is this you interpreting Sharia and then saying, I will try to live my life according to like, what would my creator think about this? Are you saying this because you interpreted Sharia to mean that? Because otherwise, I didn't necessarily get that out of the text as how to live according to Sharia. Yeah, Sati, go ahead.
That could relate to the part about Sharia affording a sort of awareness of God's presence, where being aware of God's presence is like, it's approval or disapproval of your action.
I see. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Because when you consider, or if you consider our rules, then you consider the rule giver, and then you consider like this creator, God's presence, and like how he would want you to act according to the rules he's given you. If I suppose, like it would not be correct for me to, let's say, just completely stop eating or to eat poison or something like that. Like this would go against the rules that I've been given. Like this is a blatant abuse of the rulings that I've been given. It's not what my creator would have wanted for me. So acting in this way, actually something this simple, acting according to these rules, it becomes, Nursi says that it becomes a worship of a sort and yields many fruits for the hereafter. And how I'm interpreting, maybe I'll ask you guys first. What do you think it means when it says it becomes a worship of a sort and yields many fruits for the hereafter? And maybe there's an example you can give. You might have. I'm also thinking about an example I can give as well. For example, let's say, we have we have a few brothers with children, mashallah, and I'm guessing, if let's say you already have this love in you towards your child, and it would be better if one of you that had a child would speak instead of me. However, just off theoretical theory, if you have this child and you have this love created in you for this child, to live according to Sharia here, the ruling here would be to realize this love is given to me, and then this child is given to me too. This love and this child are both given to me, and they're both the means for me to now, let's say, have an awareness of God's presence. Like I need to be aware of God's presence when I'm using these bounties given to me of love and the child. And if I'm able to use them correctly, so if I realize that, okay, love is given to me to give to the child, but I have this realization, this consciousness, why this love is given to me, and I use it still on the child, and I see that the child is a bounty from my creator, and it's like a manifestation of his names, then I am just like any other parent, or you'd be just like any other parent that is loving their child, but you have this acknowledgement or this consciousness of God's presence. And I would assume this is what he means when it says that it becomes a worship of a sort for you. And this yields the fruits for the hereafter. And the fruits would be things like when it is let's say this love is taken away from you, or things happen, or this child grows up and leaves, instead of causing you, let's say, pain, this is one sort of fruit. Instead of causing you pain or severe pain, you could be in ease. You could realize that it was never yours to begin with, or there could be fruits in how you would even realize, like, if my creator gave me this much love for a child, and like take so much care of this child, just like imagine the mercy of your creator. That could be another type of fruit that you get from that. So this is just me brainstorming about what it can mean. Yields many fruits for the hereafter. For example, Brother Yusuf, go ahead.
I guess doing a regular action, but while doing it, remembering that Prophet did it. So now Prophet doing something adds another dimension to it, because Prophet's life by definition should be 24/7 within the remembrance of the Creator. So then I will try to say, I mean, if to the extent that I am conscious. So in what sense there was this worship aspect in here? I will try to approach my regular action from that perspective also, to the extent that I am aware of it. Because I guess the bare minimum would be just to do something the way Messenger did it is much better than doing it because this is my way. At least by making this small switch is acting as a reminder for me to connect all my actions to my Creator through the practices of the Messenger. But if I want to take one step beyond that, I would say, yeah, Messenger acted like this. But what might be behind this? Then it's going to start adding layers to my actions rather than simply saying, yeah, this was his way. Like, I mean, everybody has a different way of eating yogurt, and this is the way that the messenger ate. So yeah, like just another way of doing it. Rather than following how Nicolas Cage would eat yogurt, I'm going to follow how Prophet Muhammad ate yogurt. So let's go with it. If I do see it as such, I guess I would just stay at the bare minimum. But if I say that, well, there is a prophetic way of eating yogurt. So what it might look like, what would be a worshiping perspective of eating yogurt, then I will start making further connections, realizing I am being in need of yogurt and I am being provided with it and the taste being provided to me. So these meanings will come with the description of the messengerhood also. Otherwise, if I take Muhammad as a man only and just take him as, let's say, the Alexander the Great of Arabs or Muslims, then I'm not going to benefit because I'm not using his title within I'm not evaluating actions as prophethood, actions of a prophet. So this is why I guess it says following the practices of the messenger is important. Following it as practices of a messenger, not as practices of a wise man, but practices of a messenger. I guess this part will start making me seek for purposes in that action that would become meaningful if its doer is a conscious being, as conscious as a messenger.
Thank you. Um, Essentially, what's important is not, I mean, there is some value in recognizing that he is a prophet and he's a messenger and you will just follow his physical actions, but the true value is in not just the physical, but also what kind of consciousness did he have? Like what made him follow these actions in that way or act in a certain way? Like what was his like consciousness of his creator and the bounties that were given to him? That is where the true, like following the prophet, where that's where like I will gain the most value. So I'll just continue, and if anyone would like to like just chime in these last minutes. For example, you bought something. The moment you applied what is acceptable and required by the Sharia, that ordinary act of shopping acquired the value of worship. Recalling the injunctions of the Sharia calls to mind revelation, and by thinking of the lawgiver, you are turned towards God. And that makes you aware of his presence. That means, in applying the illustrious sunnah to your actions, are advantages like making this fleeting life the means of gaining an everlasting life, which produces eternal fruits. So here he says that like when you buy something and follow the Sharia, so you mind the revelation, you take into account revelation, what it's asking of you, and then you realize the Sharia through the Prophet as well. It's not just by the scripture that you realize Sharia, it's also by the Prophet. And by thinking of the lawgiver, you see that the laws are from your creator, then you are turned towards God. And when you are turned towards God, and I think this is like the key, this is like the treasure that you're searching for, is you are made aware of his presence. You are seeking his presence. You want to realize his presence. And I think this is like realizing his presence, Nursi's equating it with gaining an everlasting life, which produces eternal fruits. Like when you're able to realize his presence, and he says that by following the illustrious sunnah, by following the sunnah in your actions, then this fleeting life you have, you're able to make it everlasting because you gain his presence. You realize his presence in your life. And he says, heed the decree. So this is a verse. So believe in God and his messenger, the unlettered prophet who believes in God and his word. Follow him that you may be guided. And ending, he says, try to reflect comprehensively the effulgence and manifestation of all of the most beautiful names whose manifestations are diffused within the ordinances of the Sharia and illustrious Sunnah. And Nursi is saying here, as was, as Brother Yusuf was talking about how, we should think about how the Prophet not just the physical actions, but why he did those actions. And Nursi is saying here is like reflect comprehensively on the effulgence, on the light and the beauty and the manifestation of the most beautiful names, and how these the manifestation of the beautiful names, they are found within the Sunnah and the Sharia. It's like the Sharia and the Sunnah are not, they are actions, they are physical, but within them you find the light of the most beautiful names. You see that they are in there. And just thinking in my life, like how can I confirm this? Like, do I witness in this in my life? Like, for example, let's say I don't eat pork. Now this is actually, I would say, quite an easy example. Like I'm not sure how, like when I have to or I think a better one is, let's say, fasting. That because let's say that's more difficult than not having to eat pork. I don't think staying away from pork is too difficult. But let's say fasting. In fasting, when you control yourself and don't eat, this is like a very classic example. It's you are living according to like a Sharia and to a Sunnah, and you are told not to eat, and then as you don't eat, there is this manifestation of a beautiful name there, and this beautiful name, you could say it's like the all-powerful one. You know that you are ruled, your creator is an all-powerful one, and that you are just an abd, you are just his creation. And this is a realization of this, the realization that you are created by this all-powerful one, this one that has always been giving you this food and feeding you that you haven't been unconscious about. The realization of his presence in your life gives you some fruits. It gives you pleasure. Yes, Brother Yusuf, go ahead.
It's like a very beautiful point, actually. And this verse is interesting, also putting this verse in here. So believe in God and his messenger, the unlettered prophet, who believes in God and his word. Follow him that you may be guided. So, because I am still trying to contrast, I can find my own way, or I can find more wise people. And my ego says this, and we hear this from especially smart people. They are saying that, am I going to learn how to act, how to behave from those quote unquote scholars? And unfortunately, several of the scholars, maybe a majority of them, becoming scholars of Islam because they are not able to get into medical school or engineering school. So their best bet was in going to, let's say, a Islamic school and getting some degree in Sharia. And now they're becoming those scholars of Islam, and they're going to tell me how to behave. So why shall I give them, this authority over me. Doesn't make any sense. They don't even understand what they're saying. I mean, this sort of criticism is out there. And apparently this verse is saying that you can extend the same criticism up to the point of the messenger, he himself was an unlettered person. Yet I'm able to figure out a lot of things by just thinking. So, and as if this verse is talking about where the value is laid. So, and this is what you were saying, because doing something just because it is commanded is having a totally different flavor than doing something because it is wiser to do it. Like purpose versus command are two quite separate things. Just a second. So if I am to do something because I am being commanded to do, let it be either even like if I drink, zinc, I'm going to die. I can take this from the perspective of wisdom, saying that, well, human body is not fit for drinking zinc, so I better not drink it, because if I drink it, I'm going to die. This is a perspective of wisdom. But when it comes to what messenger says is, the perspective should look like this. I am created, actually I am being created, and the one that creates me commands me not to drink zinc. And he says, if you drink zinc, I'm going to give you death. So don't drink zinc because I don't want you to drink zinc. So we are looking at the same action, but now the perspective has totally changed. The second perspective is a prophetic perspective. Prophetic perspective meaning someone who is totally aware of his role in this existence and acting accordingly. So this is why in prophet's perspective, it's all about commands of the creator. The whole creation is a command. So this is why there's this huge difference of flavor in between the two patterns. And this verse is saying, believe in God and his messenger, the unlettered messenger. He himself believed in God and kalimatihi. This part is important. So this kalimatihi, that his speech can be taken as his scripture, like speech of God, but also the messenger was convinced, must have been convinced, that the whole existence is kalimatihi, the speech of God. So if he is as such, I mean, it's important that the verse is using the word kalimatihi in here, taking existence as speech, a command in this sense. Messengers or prophetic perspective takes existence as such. And now I am going to follow someone who takes the existence as command, as a speech. So following the messenger means doing as such. And if I say, I mean, now that I see messenger's role as such in life, if I still say that, well, I got the point, now I'm going to go my own way, then I will start contradicting my initial conclusion. What is my own way? Who am I, not being a speech of God, but me being myself? It becomes a contradiction. This is why if I get convinced about God and God's messenger and the existence being a speech, I shouldn't and wouldn't step back and say that, okay, I got the point. Now I can go back and find my own way of reading existence as manifestations of God's names. This would be a huge self-contradiction. This is why either I am missing something in one of those steps, like belief in God, belief in messenger, or existence being speech. Because if I'm content with these, or to the extent that I'm convinced about these, I would say, okay, then let me see how that best of mankind figured out this existence. Because practically, this is what I do for my weekday job, right? I am saying that, well, I'm not a perfect researcher, scientist, whatever. People did it much, much better than I do. So let me see how they did it. So I'm going to learn from them so that I'm going, because learning is my purpose, my goal, and I'm going to do it by studying those who studied before me. So this is very human, this is very practical. So likewise, when it comes to remembering my creator, am I having this as straightforward, or my ego is kicking in not to follow an unlettered messenger? Because by not following the unlettered messenger, is it possible for me to become what the author is saying, try to reflect comprehensively the effulgence and manifestation of all of the most beautiful names, whose manifestations are diffused within the ordinances of the Sharia in illustrious Sunnah? Is it possible for me to become this comprehensive mirror to those beautiful names without following the messenger?
I think if we could maybe summarize what I understood from this fruit and all the comments and your comments, it would be that, you know, the Sharia or existence itself is also a speech from the Creator. It's not just the revelation of the Quran. It's also existence itself is a speech, and more than a speech, you could say that it's like a command. You know, it's like a rule. Just as the Sharia, you are ruled to exist in a certain way. You are ruled to not drink zinc. You know, you are commanded to not drink zinc. And in some things you're commanded more like forcefully, like to command it to like have a body, let's say. And the perspective of the Prophet, living according to the perspective of the Prophet, means that you see these things as a speech, and you see these things as a command from your Creator, and you live according to that. And when it comes to me, when I try to also, like when I become convinced of, let's say, God and then God's messenger, and I also see existence as a speech, then I need a path to follow, or I need someone to follow, a guide to follow. Like, what's my command? Like, what's the command that I've been given? How do I live? What's expected from me, from my Creator? And to do this, I need a guide, and this guide is the messenger. And this messenger has, you know, maybe this could be a topic for another time, but like this messenger has a Sharia and a Sunnah, which you know, you have some access to, and which you know, has been, like, let's say, taught over the generations. And as you follow the Sharia and the Sunnah, and the realization, most importantly, is the realization. It's not just a physical act, but the realization of what it means to follow the Sharia and the Sunnah. It's realizing that, you know, this messenger did this with a certain consciousness, and that you're seeking to be in the presence of your Creator, because that's like your goal. That's where, like, you find the everlasting fruit, is if you can find His presence. And to find His presence, you need to follow the Prophet, and you need to follow the Sunnah, in which he's teaching you how to live as God wants you to live. It would be my rough summary. And I think we're over time, so if anyone would like to make some final comments, please feel free. It could be relevant, it could be irrelevant, whatever you would like. If not, then inshallah I will end it here. Thank you everyone for attending, and thank you everyone for all your comments. Inshallah, next week we'll do the fourth fruit then, or whatever the moderator would like to do. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة والصلوات.